Welcome to Tabletop Titans and our weekly Hobby Hangout. Today we are super excited because we've had some massive reveals last weekend in regards to new Necrons, new Space Marines, and most of all, of course, the new edition. So as appropriate, we brought some Necrons to paint today. We're going to be saying goodbye to a couple models, such as this teeny, tiny, itty-bitty little Illuminator Xeris that's getting updated. We've got some Necron Warriors. Some of you might have seen online that I've been working on a Necron army. I had a challenge to see if I could paint 2,000 points in one weekend, and it worked. And now I'm excited to sort of dig into some of the other units that I currently have. But yeah, we're going to be talking about a few things. You might notice that I have a strange hue to my Necrons. They're Blingtrons, lots of gold, so we'll be talking about painting gold, which you know we love here. We'll be talking about painting some of the kind of Blackstone effects. And then, of course, you can't miss out on glow effects with Necrons, and this is something that we haven't really talked much about on the channel, so I'm also excited to discuss glows. So yeah, grab your project, pull up a chair, and welcome to Hobby Hangouts.
Hope everyone's having a good week.
Yeah, right? It's been one heck of a ride as far as like, we had the reveals on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then things were leaked. And as per the new GW leak policy, apparently, they just like, okay, screw it, we're going to show you guys everything. So we got some extra models that we've seen. Have you seen the Judiciary rules that may or may not be real? Have you seen that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not convinced, but there's some rules floating around. I'm sure you can find them that some people are calling fake. But I think most importantly, I wonder if that means that the release is sooner than later. The moment the leaks start happening, it means things are on the verge. True. So we'll see. Cool. Yeah, if it leaks, it releases. It's kind of, because I think a lot of times those leaks come from the moment when things start getting released to like these outer sort of groups, things like that. So for better or worse, it's happening. Yeah, so let's see. First thing I wanted to show you about one completed or relatively completed model. As I said, I painted the 2K in just a couple days over the weekend, and I wanted to really see what I could do with this. I received this army entirely painted gold, which I'm actually super on board with. Nihilakh is my favorite of the Necron dynasties. I was like, what is it called? Dynasties. And so I already wanted to paint something that was the same or inspired by them. So let's get some nice close-ups on this Destroyer, which have these just amazing armor plates that were really fun to do this sort of blue look on. I ended up with more of a green, which I was okay with. I started trying various ways of recreating the sort of turquoise, and the ancient Egyptian sort of jewelry look, and I ended up with something more green, but I actually like it, so that's good. And again, it's the classic thing of like, we're on the verge of a new edition. Who knows which dynasty is going to be interesting, fun, terrible? So it's probably for the best that I don't have a specific one as far as competitive play. But yeah, so super happy with this. We'll be talking about how to do this effect, and then I wouldn't really call this a glow effect, but you can see I've just painted my rods, which I guess rest in peace. I have some Necron warriors that are missing their rods, and they've always been a contentious thing. How do you feel about those, Bridger?
Well, my opinion is that we probably shouldn't be putting Legos in 40K. And those pieces always felt like those Lego lightsabers.
They're totally Lego lightsabers. Oh my gosh, you're completely right. For reference, guys, that is the bar that goes here, and you can see them here where they're painted. These are several just the plastic transparent bars that are supposed to represent energy, and here they just haven't been put in. So when I do get those, I'll probably just paint them over. I've never actually used them as the plastic, kind of for the same reason I don't use LEDs. I know some people really like that, but for me, stuff like that sort of takes the scale out of the game. Not only because they look like Legos, but like when I paint my models, I want them to have the lighting and the heft of the size of the thing that they actually are, right? Whereas an LED, for me, immediately lights something up like a toy, right? So again, not trying to bash anyone that does that, but just for me personally, I prefer to actually paint those light effects in. With, I guess, the exception of metal, right? I don't like non-metallic metals, but in theory, that would be the best way to get like light reflections as if they were on a larger surface. So let's guess the one exception. Anyways, how's everyone doing tonight? Death Company Assault Intercessors and Judiciary running around the board and Inceptors for my Blood Angels army. Yes.
I'm really excited to see what those Primaris with chainswords, like, what do they do?
Right? I'm super curious. I mean, Intercessor's already good in close combat. So a dedicated unit,
Whew.
I'm pretty excited.
Maybe the Sergeant could have, like, a Thunderhammer?
Oh,
Maybe a
wait,
Storm
we can
Shield?
already do that. Well, it was funny. So when I watched the reveal trailer, which was amazing, I saw the new Necrons immediately. But it honestly took me a while to realize, like, oh, those are new Space Marine units, because they kind of, you know, it was like, we've seen Space Marines with chainsaw, we've seen them with storm shields and sort of an elaborate armor. So I wasn't immediately like, bam, new Space Marine unit. You know, I was like, oh, it's just this thing that I'm used to seeing. We just actually haven't seen for the last year or two in new models because they haven't had them yet. So I was like, guess what? We have bikes, we have chainswords.
Should be cool.
Yeah. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I showed you guys the base color scheme, and I'll talk a bit about the kind of the process behind this. So the whole army, as I said, is primed in gold. In this case, it is done with the Retributor Armor Spray, which, oh my god, is like the most expensive spray paint I've ever bought. But luckily, it's pretty much done. So after applying this base layer of gold, I go ahead and I find anything that I'm going to want to do this sort of Necron armor, kind of Blackstone look effect. And I spray that whole thing black or paint it black. So you can see here, I started this one because I'm going to want to actually do a layer on these in just a second. But this one's nice and cured, ready for the green on top of it. I'll do the green. And you can see here, I get some black on the gold. That is intentional. For those of you who have seen our past shows, you'll know that the way that I like to do gold is I'll have the base layer of gold, and then we'll sort of darken the edges with some browns and some blacks before we wash it. And that kind of helps make it look very burnished. And I especially wanted it for these boys because I wanted it to have that really old, kind of worn down gold look, as if it just came out of a tomb, right? So yeah, super into that. So we're going to do the green in just a moment. But as mentioned, I want to do something which is going to seem very boring, but which is extremely important. I've just primed these this afternoon. Nice hot day for that. And so they're primed black. Many of us, myself included, will be tempted to just immediately go and do the next layer, the next paints. But unless you are using something that's not only a primer, but also an actual kind of painting paint, you will want to recover this with black for a number of reasons. One, you want to keep it the same consistency as the rest of your army. So for example, I'm going to be making sure that I have the same texture of paint, and it's going to be the same company as everything else, and also the same black, right? I'm going to be keeping a lot of this black just exposed wherever the green's not going, so I want to make sure it's consistent with everything else. It seems pointless, seems like a pain, but I wanted to bring that up because it is important and it does help a lot. So yeah, we'll just grab some black paint from Vallejo Game Air. I just got a big shipment of air paints because it's hard to go into stores. They're starting to open up, but I just ordered a whole ton of them, and they all came yesterday, so that was exciting.
Yeah, a lot of the stores are going curbside, probably for the foreseeable future.
Hopefully, which is great, but it's tough when I'm like, I wanted to like look through the paints and like, that's tough. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this. It doesn't have to be the perfect layer. It doesn't have to be, I mean, you don't want it to be thick, but it doesn't even have to be that consistent. Literally, you can't even tell the difference right now, right? But it will matter, especially as it dries. And also after we start doing some washes and things. So real quick on this one. I love this spider model. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the, like, spider, but spelled with a Y.
Yeah, the Canoptic Spider. And he gives bonuses to reanimation. He basically follows and like rebuilds things. He also has a lot of synergy with the Scarab Swarms, which I also still have to paint.
That's right. I remember him from Dawn of War.
Yes, he's your builder unit.
When he would go around, you could like get a big one that goes around and like revives your guys.
Yes,
they would
exactly.
like be heaps of metal on the ground when they died. He would go and eat them up and poop out a new Necron.
Reanimation protocol. Dawn of War, well, first of all, great game. But they did a really good job of representing how the Necrons work in that one.
Yeah, the pylon just kills everything.
Right? What a concept.
It was an excellent representation of the lore.
Right? All right, and then I've got the Tomb Blades, a.k.a. the worst kit to put together. They have so many bits and weird things.
Yeah, no gloves. In our local club in Fault Line, there has been a contentious debate recently on like what's the best way to paint models.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like you could blue tack your models to a stick, or you could wear gloves, or you could have like a fancy model holder, or I think the prevailing opinion amongst the club is just hold it with your hand and just get paint on your hands.
I'm glad they agree. Oh man, I found so most of the time I use it just with my hands. I don't like the gloves. I just like it's awkward to hold. I just wash my hands periodically as they like get caked with paint. But for the models, I haven't had many bad experiences, except for some if I've primed something in like white. For whatever reason, it's more susceptible to getting rubbed off with our fingers in oil. I don't know what the science behind that is. I just noticed it's whites that cause me a problem.
White is clearly just a stickier color.
It's a stickier color. Yeah.
That's the science.
Science. Oh, other thing is I'm also going to be putting these guys on different bases. That's why the flyer stand is painted.
Yeah, I noticed that your mostly finished model was magnetized to his base.
Yes.
That is an important upgrade
yes.
for Necrons.
Because he was not magnetized when I received him, and I didn't even touch the bases until I magnetized them, because it is a pain, because they're not snug. They snap off all the time. I've done a pretty simple magnetization because of the destroyer itself. If it was much easier to see this attachment, like with Harlequins, I'll generally be better about magnetizing them. But this one, I just kind of glued it on the bottom, one there, and I use a bigger, flatter magnet than you think necessary.
That looks like it's the exact same magnet I used.
Yeah.
For my Custode arms.
Oh my God! Use this?
Yeah, it's a real big, powerful magnet.
Oh.
And just like that, like I didn't drill in, I just glued it right on.
So well, that's right. So they're all like, they're super wide. It's fine. Oh my gosh.
One of their shoulders is just real long.
Oh my gosh. I want to judge you, but I can't because I'm sure I've done similar things before. Well, one thing I don't like about magnetizing, and that has sort of changed as I've done more of it, is like I don't like knowing and moving around your models, knowing that they're all like wobbly and flip-floppity, just kills it for me. Which is something I'm gonna have to fix with my Chaos Knights. So magnetizing those, and the arms just like don't hold.
Yeah, I've been running into that problem with my Vanguard vets that I magnetized because they have like 10 million weapon options.
Right.
And their Thunderhammer arms just keep drooping.
Yeah,
they just have droopy.
It doesn't feel good.
It feels real bad.
Yeah, it does. Like sad Thunderhammer face. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I paint all my flyer stands anyway. Ooh, bold move, bold move. It was a pain for that too. I had to like pop off the transparent bit. I did all the basing, sprayed it, and then put it back on top. Usually I'll try to just like tape it off, but I don't know. Let's see. Battle Foam Magnarax. Those are great. And for some armies, you kind of need them. So like AdMech, if you want to travel, the Magnarax are great. Just the metal sheets, and you put magnets on the bottom of the bases, snap on. You snap them on so that the parts don't snap off. We're not sponsored by Battle Foam or anything. All right, let's start. That's right. So I'm going to let that black cure. It is a warm day, so it'll be pretty fast. But as I said, these Annihilation barges are ready to go. I do have one small sub-assembly here, and that is the gun is detached. If I was to build another one of these, I would probably have these operators, these drivers, detached as well. I've noticed with these Necron models, and especially things like the Doomsday Arc and now this, that they're so intricate as far as like different materials that are overlapping on each other, right? So we have like this like middle section here, which I absolutely want to do a sort of glowing effect on, and then we have this armor plating, and then these other materials, and like short of a complete subassembly, it's not easy to paint, right? So I have them as they are, and this will be part of the experiment. I've been sort of learning how do you paint these in this way. And this is the reality for a lot of us, is we play them before they're fully painted. I'm human, and I do that all the time, so it's more like, well, let's just figure out how to make the painting process match that. If we can't do it the right way, we'll do it the fun way. All right, so we all know that we're like blue-green in this on this channel. And blue-green today is relegated to the role of my edge highlight, because you can't go without it. My primary color is emerald, which I also usually blend with these two. I think last week I had actually mentioned, or two weeks ago, that this emerald makes a really good like Black Legion armor color. I thought about that, and I also wanted to try it just straight onto the black Necron portions, and I really liked it. So we're going to be doing that. And yeah, so this is model color. It's not an air paint. So I'm going to do probably 3 drops. And generally speaking, when you want to thin paints for an airbrush, everyone says that you want to get to a milky consistency. You kind of just run the paint up the pool or whatever you're mixing it in, and you can kind of see that it falls down. It doesn't stick to it too much, and it has a little bit of runniness, but not too much. And over time, I've come to actually water them down, at least the Vallejo paints, a little bit less. Like I literally will almost just get some paint on my paintbrush, and then I'll swish it around. It's definitely not quite milky, but I found it to work with this. And that doesn't, it's different for all companies, different types of things. So just figure out what works for you. I think for a long time I was so stuck on like, no, it has to be as thin as milk, and it just wasn't working for me. So, all right, let's see. Very nice. And I'm gonna have to be very patient with this thing. It really pays off to do many, many small layers, small flicking, and just kind of build up this glow effect. And so what I've been doing is I just kind of take the middle of these plates and I kind of come towards them like this. And I'm just going to do this little flicking motion. And I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I'm just turning it on and off kind of constantly and just building up this color over time. And I'll move to another place so I don't get too stuck on it. Sometimes you need to give the paint some time to settle and give yourself a chance to actually check it out visually, right? Don't feel like you have to rush through it. And I'll try to get the other side. Sweet. It's a little bit more than I wanted, but the good thing with this is it's just black. We can go back over, we can fix things. The gold, we do have the paint, the brush paint for Retributor armor, so we can touch things up with that as well. And we've talked about this before on the show regarding the order of things that you paint, right? You want to paint the most forgiving thing first, or the least forgiving thing first, so that if this paint splashes onto a different area, it's an area that's easy to fix, or at least is like relatively fixable. So things like that, which gets tougher with like, I don't know, Sisters of Battle doing the white on top of the black, because there's no going back from that. Okay, so I'm not super unhappy with it. I think what I'll do when we get to the black is I'm going to come back and just sort of reinforce this black in between each of these. So yeah, I like it though. Go ahead and do the other one.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Famous Oaks. With -1s being capped, like minus to hit,
yeah,
where does a ghost keel, like what is its value anymore?
Right.
Like its whole gimmick was its -2.
That's a really good point. I mean, so I wonder, because we've started to see other ways of building in defense that aren't minuses to hit. So like, I think Raven Guard to me seemed like the biggest change of wind that you could sort of see coming, because it was like, well, the chapter that you're -1 to in cover, and now it's like, you know, if you're not in cover, you count as being in cover, and if you're in cover, then you get a -1 to hit. So I imagine we'll see things like that, where it's like, yeah, maybe they count as being in cover. Maybe the Exocrine, no, the psychic big Tyranid monster.
Maladro?
Maliceptor. The Maliceptor has like the strat that's -1 strength, and we also just saw that with the new AdMech previews. So like, I think they could build in other things that make things like tougher without being straight up minuses to hit. And in some ways, like if you fought against the Maliceptor with that strat, it's really good. It's really good. It throws you off so much. Like you have all this math in your head about how your army works, and when suddenly everything's -1 strength, it just throws off everything. I probably wouldn't do -1 strength with the Ghost Scale specifically, but I could
It's
see
such
it.
an awkward toughness. Tough 6 for a frontline model. Ugh.
Right? Yeah, I was thinking about that in regards to like demon princes, right? Because they don't stand up to a bunch of fire. I mean, they can, but that's not because of their toughness, right? Even with bolters, you're like, well, I'm only going to go on 5s, but that's not that terrible considering it's a bunch of shots. So I'm just cleaning out my airbrush real quick. I am going to do the bottom half, but again, it's not an air paint, so I always just want to make sure I don't get any jams or things like that. Especially if it's an older paint, right? You want to try to keep. I'm gonna betray myself a little bit here. That's not too bad. So you want to try to keep your bottles clean. You'll especially see some of them start to like clump up over time, and you want to get those bits off. Not just because it's easier to actually get the paint out, but you want to avoid any small chunks like getting into your airbrush, right? You might not notice it at the time, but just one small piece will get stuck in the tip of it, and then you got to spend all this time cleaning it up. That's something that people ask a lot about airbrush is like, isn't there a lot of maintenance for it? Yes, there is, but there's also small things you can do to prevent that maintenance, and that's one of them.
So what new interactions or new things in general are you most excited about?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm excited for all this like talk of like tanks shooting, things like that. I don't fully understand how it's going to work, but that gets me really excited because I think there was a lot of tanks that lost a lot during this edition.
The old
I
Lehman
can
Russ.
name. What's that?
The old Lehman Russ?
Lehman Russ. Well, they've had their, well, yeah. The name ones or the hero ones are good. The tank
The
commanders.
commanders, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, there's them. Obviously, land raiders. I mean, for orcs, every vehicle that's not a Gorkanaut or a plane, you know, the battle wagons and trucks. Any opportunity to make those playable again, I'm super excited about. So you can shoot in combat, but what does that actually mean? Like in Sigmar, you can shoot in combat, but it's only the people you're in combat with.
Well, yeah, so in Apocalypse, you could just shoot, like Tau could shoot as their fight action.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe that's what they'll do?
So do you think, would that still be like in the shoot phase?
Well, there aren't like distinct shoot and fight phases in Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering how that translates, right? Huh.
Maybe you'll shoot in the fight phase.
Interesting.
That'd be weird.
Probably not.
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that.
I don't like it at all.
I feel like that's gonna break a lot of rules interactions.
Right. I don't know. What are you guys excited about? Oh my gosh, Crusade. We for sure are gonna try to do Crusade.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's funny because it's such a like non-competitive thing, but we're all really excited about it here.
I hope that they add like some sort of RPG elements. Like if they just brought Kill Team to 40k, where like your team gets better. I know there's a lot of progression leagues, so people will like add points to their army.
Right.
But I've always been interested in that kind of like how can you add relics or warlord traits or make your units cooler.
Yeah, I mean you can definitely do it. It's nice to have that guidance, you know, like I used to make my own sort of campaign series, and like way back in the day with Warhammer Fantasy, we would play with Mighty Empires and sort of do a dual campaign of like that with actual Warhammer Fantasy games, and that was a lot of fun. But since then, there haven't been a bunch of campaigns. There was the hex-based system for 40k that was like, it was literally Mighty Empires, but way stripped down. So I never really got into that. So I'm excited. I want like my Space Marine captain that like gets slain in combat, but then gets put into a dreadnought and then is a hero and lives forever. That'd be amazing.
That would be really cool.
Right? Oh, sorry guys, I'm drifting off camera. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm coming back for a bit of a second pass. Part of this color scheme is that it is dark, but I really like having these light, sort of almost glowy effects at certain junctures. There we go. So I'm digging that. I really am.
It looks really cool.
Thank you. And then now we're gonna go ahead and do the back of this thing, which I think this inner spine I'm mostly gonna give up on and just accept that I'm gonna have to repaint that. You can see there's a bit of black already. but there's definitely going to get green on it, so that's going to be just one of those things. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I
was looking at Brian's Necrons.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, that was the exact model I was looking at, where I was like, how did anybody cleanly paint this?
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, I was like, well, we're going to see what happens on stream, because I'm not actually sure. The Doomsday art is also a pain in the butt, I'll tell you that. There's so many different bits and different materials. It's not my cleanest job, I'll tell you that. But this is turning out nicely.
Well, that was the easy side.
I know, this is the like acceptable losses side. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also excited for Custodes to have CP. Like, not needing Guard or Marines or...
Oh my god, yes. Right? Well, it's so funny because, like, so it sounds like they really don't want, or they're not encouraging soup, right? Yeah. It sounds like anything that kind of diverts from, like, more than one detachment, you got to pay for it, which then makes you question, like, why do you even have those? So, like, Custodes, that's amazing. It's funny, I think actually everyone wins, but in different ways. I would be super happy to not have to run 70 grots in every army, which I'm realizing, like, grots are amazing. They're super cheap. They hold points. That's all great. But, like, if they didn't give me CP, I probably wouldn't be running so many of them, I'll be honest. So that's exciting.
Man, I'm starting to think of all the cool armies I can make, like, just all Terminators.
Oh my god. So... the Terminators are always like an interesting litmus test at the beginning of an edition. It's like, are they going to be amazing? Are they going to be playable? Are they going to be terrible? Sweet. Cool. I like this. Yeah, we'll start this other one, and then we're going to start on the Canoptic Spider. That's the model I feel like we can take the most from start to finish. And it's the one where we're going to see some glow on it. I have some ideas for it that are similar to how I did the Wraiths, and the Wraith body is actually very similar to the Canoptic Wraith's body. So we'll be doing that as well. This one, you'll see on the camera that it's got this sort of ring around it here. That's because I was able to actually pop the gun off. This one was slightly glued, and so that's going to get covered up by the gun. So don't worry about that ugliness. But again, right? This is this like glow. It's totally going to be a glowy orb, and like if I had fully kept everything together. Good luck, it's in there. Like, okay, never getting to that. Yeah, so these are the guns, by the way, in case you're not familiar with the kit. This thing builds, you can have the one with the Lord on top of it, or you can have this one with the guns. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know that model could have guns.
I know, right? You only see one, and it's the character one.
Yeah.
And then you don't see any more than that. It's funny, like, so I even have some other sprues. I have some Immortals, I have some Lich Guard, and I'm like, how do I build them? I don't know. Like, am I impatient enough that I'm just going to do it just because I want to build Necrons right now? Or do I wait and see what's interesting? I don't know. We'll see. Sorry, green. We'll go ahead and do a quick cleaning.
So, Chad, it's a bit different for every edition change. So some editions borrow a lot of rules from previous editions. 8th was a very big change. That was fundamental. But 9th is mostly like 8.5.
Yeah.
So all the rules, as far as we know, all the rules that already exist in 8th will continue to exist in 9th. They might replace some stuff. They might FAQ some stuff. They might change how certain things work. But in general, all the data sheets, I think, are staying the same.
Yeah, and they made sure to specify that things like the Psychic Awakening and even the Vigilus, which was cool because that's older, those all still work. In fact, the Psychic Awakening, they said they basically wrote those thinking about 9th edition. So that'll also be interesting because there'll be things that like might not have been good before, but actually might be good in 9th. But yeah, like Bridger said, this is kind of, it's 8.5 really. 7th to 8th was unprecedented and like might never see that kind of change again in the game unless something crazy happens.
They're going to go to a D12 system.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, it was such a fundamental change. It's not the same game. Like 6th edition to 7th edition was kind of like this transition where 6 was fine. It was very short, and then 7th just added a couple things, changed a couple elements of it, but it was basically the same game. So same thing here. All your stuff still works. Yeah.
Don't throw any books away.
Don't throw books away. It's no need. I mean, it would have been pretty dumb of them to announce 9th and then continue to do the last. We have 2 more Psychic Awakening, I think. After when they're already obsolete. So yeah, you are good. Your investment is safe.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate part of 7th towards the end there.
Oh my God, the Gathering Storm. That was horrible. It was this epic build-up of rules. That's when Gilliman came back, Magnus came back, and it was this trilogy of books that introduced such things as the Ynnari. It was a crazy time. And then literally like a month or 2 after the last one released, they're like, okay, new edition. Can't use any of those. Which is funny because they started trying to sell those again in the last month. They're like, don't you want to buy these for the lore?
Yeah, that was a weird... That seemed like they were short on money.
It was so strange.
They wanted their quarterly profits to look better.
Right?
That seemed weird.
It was very strange. I think it was kind of just, yeah, like you said, quarterly profits. It was a downtime, so they're like, well, let's sell this other thing. I don't know. It is important. There is important lore in there. It's funny. Only actually recently I finally read the Ynnari one because I wanted to know like the full backstory. Wasn't that great? All right, so same thing here. Got the green. On the lower, there's a clog. I can feel it's like reticent. There we go. So notice there was definitely something there. How much faster the color is coming out now? Just be patient, a little bit at a time. Many, many, many flicks. But yeah, so let's see, what else did we see this weekend? I'm just super excited about all those giant like Necron monsters.
Yeah, there's so much new stuff in that picture.
I was like we saw, the first day we saw like the walking sort of crabby destroyers and like what looked like the new destroyers and then warriors. And I was like, that's cool, that makes sense, new book, a couple new units. And then the next day we saw all those huge, huge, huge models. And then I got real excited.
Yeah, there's the big walkie dude with the giant gun. Like a big crab man.
They totally look like, they're definitely inspired from like War of the Worlds. Big walking like Martian walkers. I love that kind of stuff. And the Catan and the Silent King. That model is nuts. It's funny, did you notice there was those like those kind of shield Blackstone things floating next to them? They're like separate models. They actually have their own stands.
Oh.
So it'll probably be some really interesting like positional thing where the shields are, and I don't know, some defense thing that's not -1 to hit.
Maybe it'll just be a void shield generator.
Oh my God.
4 up in months.
That'd be great. That would be great. So super excited. I'm curious about everyone's opinion on the Judiciary's head. The consensus that I've seen from people is most people hate it. I don't hate it except for the like little COVID mask in front. But what do you guys think? Am I reading the internet correctly? There's so many like photoshops of swapping that out and like memes making fun of it.
Yeah,
I like the skull.
I saw the Raven Guard head on it.
Oh my God, yes! It makes him look like an anime character.
That was pretty funny.
With Shrike. So good.
Someone put a Custode head there.
Yep. I saw someone as a joke, because like I said, everyone was doing this. They posted one that was an orc head, and instead of the hourglass, it was a squig. I was like, perfection. Stone things breaking off their bases a lot. Yeah. Yeah. You gonna replace it, Hans? Feel ya. I wonder if there'd be a head swap.
I mean, pretty much every modern kit has multiple heads.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Although the blister pack characters, which he might be, don't. Those are normally like one build monopose.
Oh, because was he in the image that we think could be the starter box? Forget.
I think so. Well, I
Because
mean,
if he is, then it's almost definitely single head.
I think it's a fair
right?
assumption that most of that stuff is just going to be in the starter box.
Although, like that's definitely true. Like the Sisters of Battle, that like starter box basically, they actually have several heads for the sisters. So who knows? Yeah, Knight type head, that'd be awesome.
Hans, I know what you mean by Knight type head, but I'm picturing an Imperial Knight's head on that body.
Yes. I would love to see like a Dark Souls or like Emperor's Champion sort of head. That'd be sick.
Yeah.
Cool. And this one also has the prow, which the other one does not.
Prow.
Right? Well, it's funny because like it's an Annihilation barge, and to me the prow is what makes it look like a barge. So my approach with this has been basically I'm looking for these. Again, I'm not going to hit these intersections right here. Those are going to be explicitly black. I'm bringing the color from the edges, and then on these corners, I'll generally hit those corners as well. If you like glowy things, this is a way to do basically glowy anything. Is you just do that. It can look very stylized, but if you're like me, you're just super into that stuff, and that's okay.
I love it. I think the way you're doing this effect is masterful.
Thank you. I like it a lot. And it's not super time consuming, right? Like, I am edge highlighting things, but it doesn't super need it. And be honest, the thing that's even stranger for me personally is it doesn't need a wash. I'm not going to wash this, which I never do. I don't know what I would wash it with, to be honest.
Null oil?
No, always. Agrax Earthshade. All right. One more time, we're going to do the top here, and then we're going to move over to something else.
Hey, Zero.
What up, Zero?
Man, it's really funny to me that you can't resist putting blue, green, or green on every model.
It's so good. Oh, man. I struggle with it. Like, it's one of those things you didn't even realize until one day you just wake up and you're like, all my armies are blue. What is wrong with me? And like a specific shade of blue as well. So like, just started working on a couple armies like to include in the studio. So we have some Sisters of Battle, have some Dark Eldar, and all these armies. I'm like, I cannot do blue. I cannot do blue. I cannot do blue. Doing my Admech, which is also blue. Yeah. Just once you find the color.
You just secretly answered some questions people have been having about us with Sisters.
Oh.
It's our first tease.
That is a tease. Yeah. I've picked up a few. We're playing with them. It's one of those weird times where it's like a great and terrible time to be making armies and painting new models. We don't know what's good, but you also can't go wrong with some Battle Sisters. So yeah. You clean yours way faster than I was able to my first time. Practice make perfect. Absolutely, Damien. I've wasted many hours clogging mine, causing problems. Main thing is just keep cleaning constantly. I just use water. One of my first mistakes is I would almost always try to clean it with either an alcohol like this or the actual cleaning material. And what that does a lot of the time is it starts to strip away the paint because it's trying to clean it. But it can actually cause clogs, right? So it's great if you're trying to do a complete clean, like at the end of a session. But while you're painting, I would just use water. No need to kind of create any extra bits. If we can get a close-up on this barrel right here, you can see it's super messy. But I'm just going to run water through it and just get anything that's kind of detached out of there. And the rest it'll dry, and that's fine. I'll strip it off at the end of the day. So yeah, ramble over.
I definitely, in the beginning,
yeah,
and probably even still today, have this fear of just leftover paints mixing in there. So I always try to super thoroughly clean it.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's a lot of like, you mean like the next day or between paints?
Between paints.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want those to mix. Like, I can't put a white in there.
Sometimes it really matters. Like, yeah, any white following something. If you have a little red, got some nice pink there. So I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. But just run some water. And then have a place where you can just kind of airbrush. So like, for example, we're just using this big surface, but generally have something that you're okay just spraying extra paint on to just see, have you actually washed it out, things like that. The worst thing for me is sometimes water will get sort of captured in there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, like it's impossible. I'm like, it's fine, everything's fine. Nothing's coming out except for air and paint. The moment I lift the model up, it just water everywhere, gushes and ruins that entire layer. And like to this day, this happens to me all the time. It's so frustrating.
It knows.
I'm just lucky it hasn't happened on stream
It
because
can detect the model.
I don't like to swear here. I know, it's literally like there's a sensor. All right, so same thing with the back of this one. Ooh, so bright, so good.
Deathwatch in 9th. I don't know. Have we heard anything about Deathwatch in 9th? Do we know?
I had heard someone say it, but I didn't. I think they might have mentioned it in the Q&A because I heard someone say it, but I didn't hear it myself, so I can't confirm that or not. But that's what I had heard. I don't know.
For the life of me, I could not read through the transcript of that Q&A. It was so long, and every answer was so vague. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, the vagueness is tough. So like everyone's discussing the terrain stuff right now, right? Which like to me, I love to discuss it. We can totally discuss it, but like I feel like we need more information. I have so many more questions than I have answers right now. You know, even like the tank shooting in close combat, like I could see 2 or 3 ways that they could implement it and still have that statement be true. That would be play completely differently. And same with terrain. But I will say, I'm really excited for new terrain rules. I'm excited if everyone uses it. You know, we play in ITC, and I love the way that the ITC does things. But it'd be nice if everyone sort of played the same way and played, like I was talking earlier about if you're playing in the US competitively, playing Europe competitively, you're basically playing a different game. You have different missions, different rules for terrain, things like that. And it'd be kind of cool to like actually play the same game as your Brits. That'd be nice. Cool. So we got this. That's right, Jay. Tank or monster shooting in CC because Riptides need more. God, Riptides.
Can't nerf a Riptide. That's actually
sacrilege.
A cardinal sin of Games Workshop.
They've been so good for so long too. Like since at least 6th edition. Ever since I've started playing competitively, they've been amazing. Mm-hmm. Like Triptide was. It's funny because like Triptide is not such a bad word to me as it was in 7th edition. I just lived in terror of those things. Like they're tough now, but like. All right. Actually, you know what? I think before we do the spider, because we've been doing a lot of green armor, and this is going to have to take some more green armor, let's talk briefly about the warriors. What do you guys think about the new warriors? They were the one model, like, I didn't hate them, but it also didn't felt like they were so significantly different than the current kit that it warranted like a new one.
You know what it is? I'd be willing to bet it's a scale change. Everything's just getting bigger in this game.
Right.
And the warriors on the table right now look tiny. Like I picked them up and I was like, this cannot be.
They're real small.
Cannot be the size of an Necron warrior.
Oh no. But what are we gonna do with the 150 some odd of them? And well, the other thing is, of course, they get rid of the rods.
Yeah.
Like they look good. They look good. But yeah, these ones are small. In fact, I have a question for chat. I haven't looked it up myself. Do you guys know what the current Necron warrior base size is? These are on 25s, but I think they might be on 32s now.
I think they're on 32s now.
Yeah. So I think, again, I'm not going to worry about it here. I'm just going to paint them. The basing, as you can see from the Destroyer, I'm just going with the classic gray rubble. That doesn't work well with the gold undercoat anyways, so I'm just going to be painting them on these and swapping them out.
Yeah, I think the hint that they're supposed to be on 32s now is that they never really fit on 25s.
I know, look at this. This guy literally has his foot off the base. They're all like straddling him. Everything looks better on a bigger base. It's this funny like psychological thing where you feel like you have more space, right? Your models are bigger.
Yeah, I don't know why they, like all of the old models, they just chose bases that are a little bit too small.
Like part of me understands they wanted the base to be as non-existent as possible. But like it's there, you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
It's very strange. So again, just my basic gold. I'm going to do some black on this, especially towards the joints and the edges. I will be doing silver, sort of on all these like rods between them. So what I'll probably do is a bit of black there, and then paint the silver on with brush later on. The other thing is I am doing at least things like the shoulder pads, the shoulder blades, I should say, in this sort of black and emerald. I don't know if I'm going to do more than that on the warriors themselves. That's one of my favorite parts about painting a new army is figuring out what your color scheme is for different units. So for example, I just started a mission for my friend, for Shane actually, doing Space Marines. And so we've been talking a lot about, what is the color scheme for the basic troops? What is the color scheme for your elites, for your Phobos, for the librarians? And the Space Marines have actual rules for that. But I think it's really fun to think about just in general. Even my orcs have some weird logics to them as far as like, which ones get the blue color because that's lucky and these sorts of things. I just enjoy that kind of stuff. So we've got some black in here. So there you go, Bridget. There was a little bit of emerald just came out. That was just for you.
Spooky.
Right? And the order of the day is speed, right? We want to do this fast, but we also want it to look good. So as I said, it's springtime in California, guys. I don't know if you heard that. But I'm going to do this black. Again, I'm going to paint over most of it, but it's going to add a little bit of shading to this gold. And the shoulder pads, I want to get completely black so that we can do that emerald on top of them. This is where I have the most bleed over them. But so far, it's actually worked fine, especially since I'm going to do a pretty thick Agrax wash on top of them. And it just helps with that really burnished, old sort of gold look. I think that's kind of it, honestly. So we're basically just doing the joints. We're doing the shoulder pads completely black. Oh my gosh, they're so fragile.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. It sounded like a bird dying.
There was like a fight of birds out there. That was nuts. 32 millimeters, awesome. Thank you guys. I wasn't able to confirm yet, so that's helpful.
Possibly changing to hex bases. That, to me, sounds like it would just piss off everyone.
Yeah.
Like,
not after the Sigmar situation. Well, especially on like hexes are good for games of boards, right? To get that precision.
Right. Maybe they were thinking about facing, maybe some sort of facing mechanic.
Yeah, that's true. Which they've gotten rid of. Because facing actually used to be a thing, especially with knights. Knights could only shoot in an arc like this,
right?
Which is like, there's so many things about the older editions that were just rife for arguments. So I'm glad we don't have those anymore.
Funny enough, I saw people asking to bring facing back. That they wanted like vehicle armor, like front, side, back. I don't know. I've only ever played an 8th, and even within 8th, there's so many places to argue nonsense.
Yeah.
And I can only just imagine how bad facing would be. It's such a hard thing to measure.
Facing was horrible. I'll tell you the worst was templates. In particular, let's see, do I have any faces here?
Oh, the template that you would like flip over 8 times?
So the barrage weapons, like the Wyvern, for example, you'd place the thing, you would scatter, and then you would basically roll a scatter dice that points a certain direction, and you would have to flip the template over. In that direction, you would also hit from there, and you'd flip it again, and you would sort of like have this thing flip-flopping everywhere. And it was like the most subjective, painful, nitty-gritty thing that was just set up to create arguments. Like, oh gosh. I miss Flamer templates. I think those were great. And obviously templates like strategically add a lot to the game, but this game is also played by real humans, and humans are flawed, so.
I would be down with Flamer templates coming back.
Right? Flamers are so bad. I'm just going to say it. They auto-hit, but it's D6 shots. I don't think they're going to get the Barrage keyword. A lot of people are asking about that. But like again, if you haven't played in 6th and 7th, Barrage was any weapon that had a template. And so battle cannons, for sure I could see being a blast weapon. Thermal cannons, no, because they were never templates, right?
That means Meltas are out.
Meltas I don't see getting.
Las cannons are out.
Las cannons definitely not, right?
Oof.
And the other equivalent that you can look towards, and this is all speculation, of course, so don't like, well, Adrian said it's going to be this. Catapults and things like that in Sigmar have this rule basically. They don't call it Barrage, but most of them have it. They'll say, okay, this does D6 damage unless it's against a unit that has 10 or more, in which case it does 2d6. And damage carries over, so it actually does work well against a horde. So it's things like that that you can either look at them narratively to determine if they're going to have blast, and honestly, I think you could look at like previous editions. Anything that had a blast template will have blast, which is why I could see Flamers doing something similar.
So you're telling me wyverns and basilisks are only going to get stronger? Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
Heard it here first. Adrian quoted.
No.
Wyverns and basilisks.
This is not a
broken in
reliable
nine.
source. Yeah, well, that's the other thing, right? Is we think about the cases where these things get better at killing hordes, but what about the things that are already good at killing hordes? Are they going to change those to have blast? And I don't know, because not everyone's getting a codex right away. So.
And speaking of killing hordes, I don't know if you saw the the engine war stuff for knights.
Oh.
Armigers getting just max shots on the war, or not the warglaive, the Helverin. The Helverin can 1 CP max shots, so you get 12 shots. That's real good.
Crazy.
That's real good.
Really, really good. I think it's great for them. The Chaos Knight stuff was so disappointing that I was really shocked when I saw the Knight stuff this morning. So good. And they're also, well, the Helverins are also getting like a cleave thing, right?
The Warglaive might.
The Warglaive, yeah. I think that was probably part of the preview.
Well, you know, I have always been on the Helverin bandwagon. I love Helverins. I love what they do for the army and what they do in a soup army.
Right.
And I have always thought the Warglaives are just silly nonsense. Like, they do both of their jobs very poorly.
Exactly. But now they can actually cut through. Oh, no, that's what it was. Yeah, they get the cleave attacks, and then it's not max shots, it's auto hits.
Ooh.
So your Gatling cannon, it goes to 8-inch range, and it auto hits.
Oh, the Warden strat. Yeah,
The Warden strat, yeah.
That's
which is
dirty.
That's real saucy.
Auto hitting.
This guy doesn't have a head.
With a Gatling cannon is.
Oops. That is amazing.
Profane, I think. That's.
Take that, Chaos. You can reroll your hits. Well, they're just gonna auto hit. To be fair, though, I guess it's locked to a Warden. I was gonna say the Chaos one could have 2 Gatling cannons, but that would be a different model.
40 auto hits.
24 auto hits. Yeah, I was curious, and I really like the Loyalist Chaos Knight stuff because they give them more tools. It looks like both of them are getting more factions, but like to be honest, that doesn't interest me as much as more utilities because you'll have more options in building your army in pregame, but when you actually get into the game, so far the Chaos Knights haven't actually got anything new that they can do. It's still like, well, different ways to sort of divide your tree, your like decision tree, and then it's the same stuff. Whereas the Imperial Knights are like, well, you get all these extra tools, you can pop this thing and this thing, and that's more interesting to me personally. But
well, I think it's interesting because now we know the context of Psychic Awakening is that they were planning for 9th.
Yeah.
And they knew Knights are going to have command points now.
They're going to be big winners.
So when you put that in context, like, maybe they were afraid of giving Knights too many new toys, right? What if you give them all these cool stratagems and then they have just as much CP as everybody else and they just stomp everybody?
That's true. Because there are a lot of strats that you just don't use in a game. Not because they're terrible, but you have such a limited pool of resources that you're going to use something else.
Right.
So that's a good point. I feel that a lot with like with orcs, for example.
Yeah.
Like you're going to want to do Daka, you want to shoot twice. But there's other cool strats that just don't get used very often.
We could see the return of the House Raven Castellan.
Oh my goodness.
Because now CP's not an issue.
That's true.
Instead of being surrounded by puny little guardsmen, he'll be surrounded by more knights.
More knights. Helverins.
It's going to be scary.
I'm excited. Bring it on. At least with knights. And I think actually, you might have been saying this the other day. When knights are dominant in the meta, at least you know what to bring to kill them.
Yeah. I didn't, maybe it's because I was bad at the time, but I didn't really mind the Raven Castellan meta.
Yeah?
I was at the LVO where like every table had a Castellan on it.
Oh god, yeah.
And I just didn't, one, I was playing Tau, so like, who cares?
Right.
And 2, I just didn't really care. I don't think I understood the game at a high enough level to feel cheated. I was just like, oh man, you shot really well. I guess I lose.
That's fair. It was just so consistent. Like the combination of all those bodies and the good shooting and like, gosh, it was exhausting. I took orcs that year and that was a rough matchup, I'll tell you. Because they just have lots of bodies, lots of shooting.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to reach their Castellan.
That man lost his base.
Yeah.
One lost his head, one lost his base. What happened to
Tragic.
these Necrons?
I know. Like I said, they've been in storage for a while. So you can see I'm being pretty loosey-goosey with the black. 1, we'll wash it. 2, we can touch up with gold later. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. All right, we'll do this guy. He's already got the blue shoulders from previous paint job. Yeah, I think like thinking about all the armies that are CP hungry, I think those will be interesting things to look towards in the new edition. AdMech I'm super excited for because they're very CP heavy, and their new rules look amazing. Steige's one, to be able to fall back and shoot at -1. Like that right there, that solves the faction. Done.
Yeah.
Like the Mars one is cool because it's ignore heavy penalties and I think +1 strength or something. This is the new canonical for them specifically. But if you get touched, you still can't shoot. So it's for like Castellan robots and stuff.
You could pay a CP and put that canonical on a knight.
Yeah.
You could have a strength 9 knight. Is that important? Does that matter?
I think.
Do we care?
I don't know.
What does that change? That changes.
That sounds wrong. Maybe it wasn't +1
pretty
strength.
much only hitting tough 8 is the change.
The main thing was the move and shoot without penalty, I think. So, Castellan robots, basically, is it. Yeah. Let's see, what are people saying? Flamers should ignore cover as like they used to. Absolutely agree, Michael. I don't know why they got rid of that, to be honest. Damage overflow for blast. That would be pretty cool, too. I think limited damage overflow would be interesting to introduce. To me, it's a bit of a problem in Sigmar, where you're just like, well, if it's a good weapon, it's a good weapon. And they do have variation a little bit as far as like what's good against Horde and what's not, but it's more explicit. It's like literally, it's like blast. If this unit has 5 or more models, it does this. Because just damage is good. Oh, it is +1 strength to heavy weapons.
Oh, to heavy weapons. Okay, so it's not in combat. You could have like a strength 7 Gatling cannon, or you could take a Castellan and give it like a strength 1 billion plasma gun.
Strength 9 battle cannon is pretty cool too.
That'd be cool.
There's all the T8 stuff you're now winning on 3s.
I think definitely if it's +1 strength to all heavy weapons on a unit, that's going to be nuts on a knight because they just have heavy weapons. Really expensive.
I hadn't even thought about that strat. That's really interesting.
And if it's all heavy weapons, like you take a Castellan, it's weird shoulder guns, it's missiles. Like every gun on that thing is heavy.
That's true. That's true. Huh. I actually like that. Do we think we'll see less troops choices on the tabletop now?
Boy, I hope so.
I think we'll see less tax troop choices. I still think like intercessors and boys and all those things will still be great, and I think we'll still see them. But like I said, I think we'll see less units of Grots. We'll see less loyal 30. We won't really see loyal 32s. I'm hoping we're going to see troops when people want to see troops. And that's the goal of the game, right? Yeah. If you want to bring troops, you can bring troops, but you don't have to like before.
I think it's going to make more elite armies possible, and it's going to make like elite armies that we haven't seen before. Like you could just have a tank company,
right?
Or
exactly
like bikers or something, right?
Because you think about why like what was the fundamental drive behind so many of these armies? You need CP.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, and the reason I say I think you'll still see boys and you'll still see intercessors is because we haven't seen missions yet. We don't know what missions they're going to write. We haven't seen if people are going to adopt those missions universally. And at least, like I said, if we play ITC, half the things are about killing, half of them are about holding, and troops are really good at holding things. So you might not have to take troops, but you probably want to take troops. So I think that's a big question that needs to be answered. Like the missions kind of determine the game you're going to play, as we mentioned earlier. So that kind of applies to every question, but
I mean, if OBSEC even still exists, who knows? They might change with the missions. Like maybe OBSEC doesn't make sense anymore.
That'd be nuts. If we don't have tax, why wouldn't you just take only the good models? Yeah, so that'll be that'll be an important part of like the design of the missions, as I mentioned, but also of the new books, right? So the like dream of a game designer is to have no tax units and have everything be viable, right? So that it's up to us as players to determine what we like stylistically, what works well in the meta. And even like the idea of a meta is kind of dangerous, right? Because that sort of implies that certain things are good or better than others. For them, ideally, they can improve troops in such a way that makes it so that it's not just the good models or everything's a good model, right? I don't have a book. I'm trying to think of a book that was fairly successful at that, but I think in one way or another, they all kind of fell into.
I mean, Drukhari is a book where basically every model is a good
I
model.
love the Drukhari book is great. That's true.
Yeah. But I think I might have to disagree with you. I don't know.
Oh, yeah?
Like, Magic is one of the most long-standing, successful games,
Yeah.
like physical games, and it's predicated on the concept of a lot of the stuff's garbage, and there's just tax things. Like, you need lands. Lands don't do anything. They just allow you to play the game. Like, they're a tax.
Right.
You
But that
have
makes
to
them
bring
important.
land.
That's why you need them. They're good. They
Yeah,
let you play the game.
Troops were a tax. Troops were like, you need them to play the game.
Mm-hmm. But think of lands like CP, right?
That's true.
CP is good.
But I don't know. There's so many bad cards in Magic, and it's still a great game. Not everything has to be like the optimal thing. Sometimes it's just a cool thing. You look at a card or a model, and you're like, man, that is cool. I want that.
Yeah.
Just because it's cool.
But like, tell that to me in my like 12 orc buggies that I really want to play in like a non-narrative game. I get where you're coming from. I'm not saying like in order to make it to be a good game, everything has to be perfectly balanced because that's impossible. But I think that is kind of the challenge, right? And that's why I had mentioned the vehicles thing earlier, right? I'm excited to see about vehicles because I think so many of them have not been played. I want to play all my toys. If I'm going to play different toys this edition than my last edition, it's not ideal, but I'll take it, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do some spider work here, and then we're going to talk about glow, which is something that's always in flux. Glow kind of depends army to army. We'll come back to that. They make you feel better when you win. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Hive Tyrants. Yeah, it's just like there's no reason. Same with Walking Demon Princes. You would never have one, basically. Like if you're trying to play competitively, completely 100% as competitive.
I think it would be cool to have tax units that are a burden that you take on for taking a really good thing. Mm-hmm. So like if you want a Knight Castellan, you have to bring Warglaives or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess like on some level, I don't like the idea of like tax things, right? Like I said, Grots are tax units in the sense that I wouldn't want to take them, but because of what they give me, I don't think of them as a tax. Like Grots are good because they unlock CP. They give me bodies, right? And because they're relatively useless to me, same with like 5-man ranger squads, you then say, okay, this is an asset that's very cheap to me. I don't have much to lose with it. So I can use those as screens. I can use them as sacrificial like speed bumps, things like that. And that's only good because they're bad, right? If they cost more, if they were more valuable to me, I wouldn't want to be able to do that with them.
Yeah, there is some psychology to like throwing away things that you paid for, and maybe you have perceived value in them. Like maybe these rangers could kill something. Or
so much about trades. I'm going to trade this 30-point Grot unit so that your aggressors basically can't move past a certain point or whatever. Like, they're going to die. You're going to get a kill point, but, you know. All right, back to the screen. So this one, we're going to try it. I'm a little scared. Actually, I'm very scared because on the flyers, I went ahead and put a glow inside of this big one, inside of the kind of circles of the Necron like chiseling. That'll be fine. That's feasible. But like, if I do that, don't I technically need to do these?
No. No, you do not, Adrian.
I must. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, you're probably right. I probably don't have to. It's the trading concept like in chess. Yeah, absolutely. I think trading is so important in so many games.
In some ways, I like trading in 40k. Like certainly, I'm willing to play the game where I trade, but there are so few turns in the game, so few actions or decision points, that sometimes trades just feel bad. Where it's like, oh, I guess I'm just like I'm making these 5 decisions or these 5 trades, Or, you know, if you make a trade on the second to last turn of the game, you're like, well, I'm throwing this away so that you don't have that for one turn, right?
I feel you. Although by the same nature, that's another asset, right? You're trading a unit for time.
Yeah.
Time's another asset.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another thing that like I think we talk about in our games when we do it on the stream is like, don't throw everything out in the first turn, right?
Yeah.
Because time is an asset, and if your opponent's going to waste it, then that's great, and things like that. So I started doing it, and I don't hate it, but you know what I like more is just making this a really nice gradient transition from the butt coming up.
I'm with you.
You know,
I think it looks great.
not always worth it. Oh my gosh, so good. Love these colors. I wanted to see the oh, I'm actually doing this reverse of how I did the destroyers.
Uh-oh.
Oops. Oh well, I like it. And the destroyers are, they don't have any of these designs, unlike that chunky destroyer that we saw in the preview. So I didn't have as much like texture to take advantage of. So that's fine. That's another thing about color schemes for armies. Don't be afraid to try new things. And don't be afraid to break your own rule. You're the one that made it. Like, what do you know? There we go. So you can see I'm just maintaining this momentum, this motion with the airbrush where I'm kind of coming around it from these sides. I'm not going to do it from the inside. I'm not going to do anything else from these other directions and just sort of keep this nice little kind of glow effect. Super happy with that. Okay, and then the legs, same thing. So you can see I'm just going to take the same idea. I look at these legs that I have here, and wow, I'm noticing how many similar parts this has to the Wraith. It's really interesting.
Yeah, they do reuse a lot of parts.
It's like the same thing. Yeah, so that's interesting. But yeah, same effect. I'm just going to go boom, 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 left and right, same thing. The head I'll do, and then this part I love doing. I should have brought my Cryptek, the new model. That one was a lot of fun to paint. So what I ended up doing for that, we're going to do this.
Daniel, this is Vallejo Emerald, right, Adrian?
You got it, Vallejo Emerald. This is not their airline, just the regular line, for reference.
Yeah, Damien, there's a lot that we have to wait and see. I know a lot of people are worried about how is melee versus shooting going to shake out. Like, if you can shoot in combat and you can't tie things up, like how do melee armies function? But there's just so much we don't know. How do the terrain rules work is going to be massive.
Huge.
Missions, like really just, if you don't know what your objective is, knowing what's going to be good is impossible. So we just have to wait and see. I know that the 40K community likes to make snap decisions and complain a lot, but I think we should all just be excited and optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely wouldn't get upset about anything yet. Just enjoy this exciting moment of the new edition. And I'm excited. You know what I'm excited about, Bridger? I'm excited to be bad and to just try stuff. Like, we have so many sort of things we've learned during 8th edition have been built in, and that's a lot of fun. There's also something that's really exciting about like relearning all the new tactics, strategies. Like this is a new edition. Every army is going to change. Even if you don't have a codex from day one, it's going to be a new system, new points. And to me, like that's really exciting. Like looking at that book afresh and saying, well, what's good now? What's going to work? What's not going to work? And we're going to fall on our face a lot as we're trying things out. But I'm super excited to just experiment with things.
Yeah, some of the most fun games I have ever had was when I was getting the rules completely wrong, or just had no idea what I was doing.
Right?
Like early 8th, I was bringing Terminators and casting the reroll charge spell on them, and I was like, "I'm gonna get you! I'm gonna get you!
I'm gonna get you!" Oh my god!
Man, you better believe they had chain fists.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Oh my god. And did you do it like in the Total Bridger way, where we're just like, "I have Terminators. They're reroll charge. You can't do anything."
Exactly.
Like, I literally don't know what you're going to do about this.
And then I would fail the rerollable charge. And
yeah.
Never catch up because they're Cataphractii Terminators.
Oh, God. Oh, that's hilarious. God, at the beginning of 8th, I had so much fun. I was running the Gargantuan Squiggoth with 15 tank busters inside of it. It was so fun. And it was good, actually. Still need to get that one on stream one day.
I hope Overwatch changes for the better. My main opponent is a Tau player, and he's complaining. Even he's complaining about how it's just an extra shooting phase at a certain point.
Right.
I think at some levels it's an extra shooting phase, but from another angle, it is a rare point of interaction between the two players. It is one of the very few times where you can influence your opponent's turn on their turn, and influence their decision making. So you say like, I'm gonna stand here, and if you charge me from line of sight, I'm gonna shoot you, and then they have to react to that on their own turn. So I think it does more than you might think. It introduces interaction in a game that's mostly devoid of interaction. Right. A lot of players' turns, they can just like, your opponent can walk away while you do your own thing for half an hour, but it's interesting. I can see a bad taste in the mouth because like it feels unfair with Tau. But you just have to get used to it.
Yeah, that's very understandable. But I think Bridge was right too. Like, this is a point of interaction. Like, I know there was a push. I won't say if it's large because I doubt it was actually a majority of people, but there were people talking about 40k going to alternating, right? So like Infinity, like I activate a guy, you activate a guy, back and forth. And that's like the most integrated sort of interaction between two players. Doesn't work on this scale. But Overwatch is one of those few instances, kind of like the Psychic phase, where there actually is this back and forth of like, I'm going to do this thing. You have this decision space of how to respond to that. And then we go back and forth. And one of the most important things I learned about how to fight Tau, you don't charge them.
Yeah.
It's so hard to fight that instinct, but like their Overwatch is amazing. So what if we just don't let them Overwatch, right? Only let them get that one shooting phase, things like that, which not every army can do. But the moment I realized I just need to not charge Brian's stuff and just try to play the objective game, because he'll have to come get me eventually. It's helped a lot.
The first time that I ever beat Brian was a game that I did not charge like almost at all.
Yep.
Now, mind you, I did have pre-nerf Caladiuses. So I had a bit of a crutch.
A little bit. Oh, man.
Yeah, Damien, the turn one, like, if you don't go first, you start with 70% of your army. I think that's a big pain point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially, like, when Iron Hands were big, it just felt pointless.
Yeah.
So hopefully the terrain rules get improved, specifically to mitigate that problem. At least that's how I would solve that problem.
Yeah, well, especially for tournaments, right? How many times have we seen just like someone just gets shot off the table because they had an unfortunate board because someone at the store just, didn't set something up quite right.
Yeah.
Like, that feels bad. It really does.
Yeah, terrain is so important in this game.
It's everything.
You can't have too little, but you can't have too much. It's real tough.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex, not even. Kill 3 intercessors, please. You kill 2 and one of them gets back up from the apothecary.
So it is a war game, so not charging seems counterintuitive. But I think think about, just to sort of semi-play devil's advocate. Think about, why do we have these objectives, right? Like, in the narrative, it's not just like, hey, stand in the spot and like you do a thing, right? It's an abstraction of, there's intel that they need to gather from that, or there's some sort of ore they need to extract, or they need to perform this like ritual of summoning, or things like that. That these objectives are just representations of that, and a lot of the time, it's also a representation of like a larger battle that's happening, right? It's this sort of abstraction of like kill points and victory points that are like you're getting these tactical advantages. So in that sense, there's that. But I totally get it. As a Tyranid player, I have a hard time avoiding the temptation of melee, or I try and have a shootout against the Tau, and Tyranid shooting isn't the best, but I'm hopeful for the new edition. I
Hey,
totally
man.
feel you, Mason.
You know what you need? You need some dock effects.
Dock effects.
Like 12 of them.
Well, but here's the thing, right? Just like the tanks, I think look at all those monsters that can shoot and fight, because if you can shoot in combat, oh, we're so in business. Dreadnoughts, maybe? Like dreadnoughts with multiple roles. Right now, you're either a shooty dreadnought or you're a close combat dreadnought. And if you're close combat dreadnought, you're probably not releasing the table anyways.
Or hidden third option, your chaplain dreadnought.
Oh, I have zero hope of continuing to be able to use those models. I'm just gonna accept that they're gone. Oh man.
I'm totally with you, Michael. The range, that's something, range creep, like this game definitely has power creep, and range is one of the places where it's most evident in that all the range numbers are just going up and up and up.
Yeah.
To a point where it just feels like oppressive. It's like no matter where I am, they can always see me, they can always shoot me.
Well, and in some armies it's worse than others too, like Space Marines. It's like not only can they shoot super far, but they can see you anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of the worst things that happened in the Marine book. Was just like, when you played a melee army before, you'd be happy to see a super dense table. But now with the Space Marine players, just like, yeah, sure, do it. I'm just going to shoot you out of it. Doesn't matter.
Walls.
Yeah. Like through the walls. Oh, yeah. Grab Bombard with the Siege Claw. That grab Bombard is such a weird weapon. It's like you can play around it because it's only at 18-inch range. But like, my God, the first time I had that shot against one of my units of boys, I was like, it's a big gun. It can't kill all these little dudes. They're like, oh, no. It does this. It multiplies the shots and does all this crazy thing.
That's such a cool gun.
It looks really cool.
I played against a guy at SoCal who had two Leviathans. One of them was in a drop pod.
Yep.
One of them had double grab flux, and the other had the double melta thing. And boy, was that a funny game.
You gotta respect that. Oh, that's hilarious.
Their zone of control might not be large, but it is very threatening.
Yes. Oh, it will kill anything that comes into that bubble. Unless that thing can charge them.
And survive the Overwatch.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned to fight Leviathans the same way I fight Tau. I didn't charge them. Well, a little bit different. I would charge something else and then pile into them, and then just stay touched with them the entire game. And that became like this huge mini game because the Leviathans have such a huge impact on the game. We're like, okay, here's the battle, and here's this really, really important mini game that's called Touch the Leviathan, and it was, yeah.
Yeah, they seem to project a larger zone of control or a more threatening area on the board than bigger, more expensive models. Leviathans are in such a weird place that like, they're not super heavies, but they are much more threatening than super heavies.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly at the apex of Iron Hands, Leviathans were just vomit-inducing.
Disgusting. Unkillable.
They felt unfair.
Yeah.
Because even then, you couldn't touch them either, because they would just walk out of combat.
Right.
In your turn.
I didn't realize that's how it worked for the longest time. I was just like, yeah, they're just unkillable. Like, that's fine. But they're like, no. You do the warlord trait, and then you can fall back. And I was like, oh, that's dirty. I don't like that. And I'm a hyper-competitive person, but I was just like, nope. That feels bad. So I'm just doing a bit on the underbelly. I want to do the glow here and the glow here. So let's talk a bit about glow.
The movie? You know, they're making a sequel.
The series? I actually really enjoyed it.
What am I? The Will
women's
Smith
wrestling?
movie. The Netflix Will Smith movie. Is that not called Glow?
It was something like Glow. Or maybe it was Glow.
Shine? Glow?
I think it was Shine. Or Bright?
Bright. That's
yes.
what it is.
Glow is the Glorious Ladies of Wrestling, which is a great TV show, by the way. But yeah, so Glow. So there's no one size fits all for colors of Glow, right? This is going to be something that you want to generally pick that contrasts well with your army. Here it was a bit more awkward because I've gone with a sort of blue-green, and Necrons traditionally have that green glow. I'm definitely not against switching it up. I've definitely done like weird plasma colors and things like that, but I really wanted to try to make the green work here. So it was important that I, one, picked a contrasting green. That was very vibrant and very green, almost a bit yellow. And so that's it on sort of color theory behind it. But the general application pretty much holds the same. This is something that I really do recommend in airbrush. Most techniques I try to kind of talk about how you can do with a brush, but I think the best way to do glow ultimately is an airbrush. So what I'm going to do first is let's do this on a tester because I want to give this actually a bit of time to cure, the usual. All right, so and this one is going to be covered up, so if we mess it up, it's fine. I've been experimenting with how to get the glow right on the Necrons, and I'll just kind of talk you through what I have so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the first layer of glow that's just going to be kind of the area around it. I'll hit the actual source, the light source of it, but the main thing is I'm trying to get the glow all around it here. And to do that, I'm just going to grab my main color. I'm using Moot Green. This is the Air version from Citadel themselves, and I found this to be a very strong green. And what I mean by that is it doesn't need a coat of white underneath, which is the case with some of these colors. With like yellows, if we try to do yellow glow, a lot of the time we'll do a white first and then the yellow. But with this, you can just go right on in. You can feel there's like a little chunk of something. All right, so be gentle, right? This is something where it really pays off to do it slowly. Take it easy. In this case, the stakes are pretty low for me, but if you're trying to have the light bounce off of something, like if there was Resurrection Orb that I'm actually holding or a torch, then be gentle. So what I'm going to do, it's almost like too chunky. There we go. Cool. So I'm just going to sort of go in this rotating motion all around it. Getting brighter and brighter, and the brightness comes from the number of layers you choose to do, right? So I'm just going very, very light. You can see it's hardly even appearing there, probably especially on the camera. And I'm going to do just a bit on the outside and get stronger and stronger as I come towards the center, to the point where it's like the pure green. Whoops, a little too much. Ah, look at that splatter. Anyways, so something like that. The thing I'm going to look to next, which I actually don't really see here, is if there's something you wanted the light to sort of bounce off of. So let's just say, just so I can kind of walk you guys through it, I wanted the light to come and bounce off of these little like spines that are poking up. What I would do is then you're literally thinking about how is this light source going to come, and I'm just going to place it as close as I can to that angle and do just a little bit of light. So I'm not sure how that's showing up, but just a little bit at a time. It's easier, or it's smarter to do more layers than less, right? And I'm even at the back of this section. Gonna hit it up with some glow. We're kind of getting into OSL territory, but I think you can do a little bit of it without just going completely nuts.
Oh, you can glow the bottom of the gun. That's a good point.
The bottom of the gun?
The gun's going to go there.
Oh, yeah, totally. Let's take a look at that real quick. So I definitely want to do the glow, but the glow should be the last layer that you apply. So because I want to do a wash here, I should wait until I do that. The glow is really like you have everything else done, which is also what makes it scarier because the stakes are suddenly much higher. But really, that's the way to do it. If I was to apply the glow here on the gun and then wash it, that'll throw everything off. So you're right, this should have been washed, but another time perhaps. Yeah, so we have that. And then what you can do is you have the glow, and if you really wanted to make this pop, you can see it's not super bright. We can go ahead and actually and create sort of this brighter center in the middle. And what I'm going to do for this one is I will do some white. That's because we're going to add a bit of yellow just in the center. So generally a glow, I'll try to have two colors to it. I'll try to have, oh, do I need to clean this? Good catch. I'll try to have the primary color that we have from it. Generally it's a blue or a green or like a red. And then I'll have the apex of it, which really comes to the super bright point that with blue, I'll usually pair white. With orange, I'll usually do, or orange and red, I'll do like a very bright yellow. And in this case, for the greens, I generally also like to do a bit of a yellow. And what I'll do, I won't do it today because I won't have time to cure, is the BL Tan wash that GW makes. It's a great green wash, and I'll actually apply it over them. So like my Night Haunt, I actually paint almost entirely with yellow paints and a bit of this moot green, and then I wash the whole thing in BL Tan. And the idea is they're all very glowy and very ethereal, but it's actually primarily that yellow.
So James, it depends on the super glue, but the way that I keep my lids from sticking is I just use a push pin instead of a lid. Genius.
Amazing. It's actually a really smart thing to do. Because it won't snap off.
Right, it won't snap off. And it's inside the bottle instead of outside the bottle, so there's less contact surface.
Yeah, no, that's a really smart idea.
I've had to cut the nozzle off of too many super glue bottles.
I have one at home that's like sawed-off shotgun at this point. James says, what is a common mistake you see when list building? For me, it's disregarding units that you can do a lot of jobs well over a unit that does one job extremely well. Good question.
I see a lot of people take 3 of something just because they feel like that's what they're supposed to do now. Like, now that we have the rule of 3, or I guess for a couple of years now we've had the rule of 3, but we're so ingrained with the rule of 3 that we think if anything's good, you take 3 of it.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case.
Yeah, that's very true. I think people also kind of related to that. People don't always have a plan for their army. And again, we saw this very much with things like Space Marines, where they're just like, oh my god, like these units are amazing. I'm gonna take 3 Thunderfire, 3 Eliminators, 3 of these things, and I'm just gonna like shoot my opponent off the board. I'm gonna clean this real quick. But there's no plan there. There's no plan beyond just killing your opponent. And what happens if you don't do that? What happens if you go second against someone with the exact same list as you? So I think it becomes important to think about what roles these things have, which is kind of to the point that you were saying, James, about like units that can do multiple things. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it turns out guardsmen, not only do they move, they can also first rank fire, second rank fire.
That's right. That's right.
And those are both really good.
They're very flexible. Exactly. And also why in especially some of the top Iron Hands lists, kind of before Warhammer, they had lots of stalkers, yes, but there usually be things like a single utility unit of the bolt rifles, so that when you are playing orcs, you can do the double shots on all those rapid fire weapons. And that doesn't necessarily appear immediately in the list, but it comes out in the game. Like maybe you'll use it one game, another game you won't, right? Even some things like the same thing with like those dreadnoughts, right? Like Nanavati for a while was running the the Redemptor and the Contemptor, and one was good at killing like hordes, and one was good at killing like vehicles and things like that. And so on a match by match basis, was able to sort of decide which one was going to get the buffs, which one was going to die, and that becomes very useful. So I try not to pigeonhole myself in a list. Which things like the Burn Obama are probably the closest thing that'll come to that. Because it's like they will go in, they'll fly, and they'll do their thing, right? Great question, though. Oh, yeah, see, I think there's something in here.
Have Yunari had enough time in timeout? No.
Never.
I think Yunari need to be in timeout for at least 1,000 years.
I think they need more. They need something that makes them more unique. Like, stop trying to make them these weird variations off of 3 different books, because it's just like it's so open for abuse. And like, I don't blame people for playing them to the max, right? Like, if it's there, use it. But it's just it's this huge problem space of how do you design one army that's actually 3 different armies, but that's different than the way that they normally work. That's tough.
I think their current spin on it is interesting. I think it's cool. When I first saw the way that I understood the army was supposed to function now, I was like, oh man, that's really cool.
It sounds great.
It doesn't work, but it's cool.
That's true.
They can't go back to their old design. I think they just need to here and there slightly improve the current design because it's a cool new way that Eldar play. It's not like any of the other Eldar. Can use all of the models, and each of the sub-factions can contribute something. Like there's units from each sub-faction that feel good in New Ynnari. They're just not there yet, and I think if they keep iterating on it, it'll be fine. But in all honesty, if Ynnari were never competitive again, I wouldn't lose any sleep. They were disgusting.
Such a hater.
They were just like the epitome of unfair. It felt so bad to ever play against them.
So we were talking about interaction earlier, and that's the problem with Ynnari is if you play Ynnari well, and like you in order to do well, you actually had to play them pretty well, at least in the later powerful versions of it. But like if you could do that, you just played the game by yourself. Basically, it was like you get to do so many sub actions and take away reactivity from the other player, and you also make the reactivity of the other player a bad thing, right? Well, I'm going to kill this unit. Oh, then I'm going to do this thing, and that's great, you know? You'd almost hope for them to do the thing that they fundamentally want to do.
Oh yeah, Damien wants to know, what were you doing with the needle there? We didn't get... I tried to get a couple camera shots, but it just wasn't in frame.
So this is generally, and I think it's fixed the clog. So this still happens, you know, fairly often. So what I've done, I'll just unscrew this. I have the tip right here that's separate, and the first thing I was doing was I'm just sort of stabbing the needle through, so I can feel there's a bit of tension here. I know that paint tends to gather right at the base right here, towards where the needle comes from. So I was kind of feeling if that is the problem. There is tension, but I wasn't sure if that's the actual clog. Then the other thing I go ahead and I do is I stick the needle through here. And obviously the first thing is, does it fit all the way through? Almost always it does, but the amount of paint that it takes to actually clog this thing is really small, right? So a lot of the time it won't be right there. It's not going to get immediately pushed out. So what I'm actually doing is I'm rotating the tip and I'm kind of scraping the pin against the needle against the side of this. Not too violently because you don't want to bend it. That would like completely ruin it. But I'm sort of just digging for a piece of paint. And I actually ended up getting it, and it just sort of gathers up all the paint in there and eventually gets pushed out the very top. This thing does actually come off into an even smaller tip right here. But in my previous airbrush, once I did that, it was just super loose forever afterwards, and I've been able to avoid it. So I clean that, and then I'm sort of rebuilding it. I'm going to run some water through it, and then that should clean it enough to get working. It's a bit stuck, but we'll see. So good question.
As somebody who has bent several airbrush needles, if you feel it sticking, it might be that the tip is bent, so you're going to want to look at that.
That's true.
If the tip is bent, try to straighten it, but you probably just need a new airbrush needle.
Yeah, I got a new one.
And as somebody who has also shattered that extra tiny tip on the end, yikes.
What? You're talented.
Be careful with your airbrush.
Oh my god.
Don't drop it into mason jars full of alcohol. Because that tiny little tip thing could break.
They're super fragile.
It is absurdly expensive.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no problem, Damien. Thank you for asking. Definitely wanted to show it. Okay, so let's see. Right, we're talking about glow. So now that we've cleaned that, I'm going to do a bit of the white.
Chad, I think that a lot of those custom or those specific matchup focused abilities like Death of the False Emperor are really cool. They add flavor to the game, and they don't put any thought towards the balance, and that's fine. That's totally fine.
You like that? You like Mortarion getting 3 additional hits?
It's fine. They're cool. They're fun. They're interesting. Oh, look at that glow.
Right? A little off center. So I've even done it a little bit more than I wanted to, but I just have that little point right there, nice and soft. And again, this is yellow, so it does actually need that undercoat. And then in a minute or two, we'll go ahead and do the yellow there. I'll even do a bit of yellow on the green. Just makes it a bit richer. But yeah. If the spider is cured enough, I'd love to do it here.
Let's do a spider.
Yeah?
I think we all want to see. We all want to see a spider.
I don't want to strip it. All right, let's do it. We'll do it. Okay. For that one, we will go back to the moot green question mark. Yes, we'll. Mason's asking about 9th being more friendly towards melee. I hope so. It sounds like the terrain rules will be helpful towards that as far as what they've suggested. But again, it really so much depends on how they implement that. I hope so. I love Melee. If you watch the battle reports, you know that. But also a lot of the things I love about it are sort of weird intricacies that probably weren't completely intended. So if they can make the game interesting in a different way, then I'm on board for whatever. All right, so we're gonna go back to the moot green here, making sure I shake it enough. And here's another thing I've learned for preserving your paints is as I open these stupid pots up, I just immediately start kind of scraping them on the sides like this, left and right, so that you see that giant glob of paint that's now sliding down there with that bubble. That will go inside the pot and not immediately build up this sort of residue, which I have here, but I literally don't know how to pour a small amount of this without doing that a little bit.
Yeah, can we take a minute to mourn the terrible design of GW paint pots? I mean, for like, if you want to hand paint,
yeah,
they're okay. Like, there's a nice little well there. You open it and it's got some paint for you. But then inevitably it drips down the back and makes a mess.
And it dries the entire paint out, like while the whole time you're painting, because you've exposed the entire pot to air now.
It's just, what were they?
Plus, like, they are so adamant about thinning your paints, and yet there's like this perfect thing for just like painting straight from the pot, which is like the weirdest incentive. Like, I try really hard not to be too cynical about those like GW decisions because that just leads to madness. But like the paint, like come on, we waste so much paint and then have to buy more. I'm like, there has to be conspiracy theory.
Yeah, GW paints dry out faster than any other paints. It's got to be intentional.
Definitely intentional. Yeah. So I like the droppers, but they do make good stuff, so I keep buying some of their paints. All right, so again, we're going to try the same thing. So I'm going to start with just... I can immediately see that I definitely had that clog when I started the moot green, because now it's coming out real nice and smooth. The moment I saw that splattering, I had a feeling. And so that's a good thing with airbrush. I know it's tempting to just power through it and be like, no, it's fine, the clog will come out. It won't. Just stop, don't ruin your models, fix the clog, and then go back to it. Because I've tried to rush it a million times and it's never paid off. So anyways, back to the highlight. Here, and now I'm just sort of rotating around. And you can see it's a lot easier than the gold, except a lot nicer. So I have just a little bit of glow. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate the model. And we talked a bit about this last week, where you can do semi-masking effects with the way that you actually hold the model. As I say that, I know I'm going to hit the legs, so I'm going to grab some handy-dandy magic silly putty. Yes, this is just silly putty from Walmart or Tesco or whatever it is, wherever you live. And I'm just going to put this on the legs. But not, I want to be careful, I don't want to put it on any of this carapace because I want that glow. So anyways, back to this. I'm going to hold it at this angle and get it as just as this light is coming out and over this carapace. I'm going to resist going too hard into it, and I am going to cheat just a little bit. One thing that I am very adamant about is making something realistic is great, but making it look cool is better, right? So theoretically, a lot of this light would just hit the edges like this. They wouldn't actually reach around in the way that I'm doing it, but it looks good and it's not completely like, it conveys that idea. So yeah, see that one leg I didn't protect. We have this kind of green glow coming out of it, which I'm really, really digging. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Mask these legs. Big ol' silly put. Same thing. Cool. A little bit more. There we go. Like I said, lots of small layers. Build it up where you want it to come out. I really like this rim here. That's pat myself on the back on that one.
A lot of glow.
A lot of glow. So let's see. What's that?
A lot of bright.
Right. I'm gonna add just a little bit more in the center. I also have this thing which I've been painting as a light. I'm not actually sure.
Oh, definitely.
It's for sure light. Like so. You can see there's a little bit too much paint there. You can see it actually looks like wet paint, which is never a good thing. These eyes I have been struggling with. I'm going to give it a try, but they're just so small. I'm going to do the glow. Super, super light.
You know, I always thought of those eyes as being red.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm holding my breath. There we go. Well, yeah, like I said, it was such a weird thing because I'm like, I want to use the Necron green, but the rest of the model's also green, so in the end, they went for it. Cool.
Zero, we do have a Discord that we actually just never made public.
We do?
We made one, and then we never did anything with it.
Oh, that's funny.
So maybe we'll do something with that.
We should. We definitely have Facebook. And we have the page you guys can post and things like that. But yeah, we should set up the Discord so we can chat more. Master of Snares will not allow planes to leave combat. Because it'd be funny. Master of Snares created so many arguments in our local groups where it was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you lassoing the plane to the ground? Or like, why would you not using a lasso in the first place? This is like Warhammer 40k. It's a giant magnet. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense either. How are you not getting carried away with the plane? And just like over and over again, all these like endless debates, which were amazing. Cool. Yeah, James is also interested in the Discord. Yeah, we'll get you guys back about that.
I have it. I swear it exists.
Apparently, it exists, so that's good.
Just need to open it up and maybe like restrict some things.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some of the white for that yellow glow. Where is it? Here we go. The plane. Guess I'll die. I loved doing it with the mirror, because she's also a character. So a plane would fly by, you'd heroically intervene into her, and then if they can't pass the leadership, then they can't move, and then they just die.
Dirty.
It's so dirty. It was like rare because they'd have to like mess up basically, but if it happened, it was glorious. Just a little white. Boom. Digging it. And just teeny bit. See this one? I don't know.
Oh boy, you're playing with fire here.
I am. Even that's more than I wanted to. But I only use this one airbrush, to be honest, and this one needle and this one setup. But I know you can get ones that are better at super fine details. I have not leveled up to that level yet.
Too fancy for me.
I'll admit when I'm beat. I think we need more mask for it, Zero, for sure. Oh. We need all the masks. Cool. Actually, which one were we doing? Let's see if the I think this should be cured enough to go ahead and do some yellow on that. And so I'm using my favorite yellow, which is gold yellow. This is Vallejo Game Air. And I like it because, well, it's actually in the name. It's a gold yellow. It's very rich. It has a little bit of like an orangish hue to it. So if you're more about pale yellows, this is not the yellow for you. But I like it. All right. It's so ugly without the gun. Look at that big. All right, here we go. So extra, extra dainty. There we go. Cool. I'm digging it. So this one with the yellow would be really good with a wash. It just adds that extra layer of saturation. It's really nice. So we let that dry. Scale 75 gold set. I haven't actually. Yeah, so this is Jeremy. This is the Awada Eclipse. I like it a lot. I think it's a great starter brush. It's relatively affordable. It's not one of the super cheap ones. It's not super expensive. So I would highly recommend that one. And then compressor-wise, I've gone through a bunch of like ultimately cheap compressors, mostly from Amazon. I haven't had one that I specifically recommend. I use Master compressors. That's the brand. But a WADA Eclipse 100% for your starter airbrush. I love it. And it has a back piece to it that normally comes attached. I'm always futzing with it. Will I ever hand brush on the stream? I know, Marcus. We've been doing so much of airbrush lately. Oh, actually, now that you mention it, we should talk about some of the edge highlighting here. So let's go ahead and do that now. Just gonna grab my palette. How do you move?
It's gonna disappear. Don't look. Adrian's gone. Proof he wears pants during the stream.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's true. Not during the rest of quarantine, but during streams. Ryan said I wasn't allowed to show up to the studio without pants anymore, so. All right. Saucy. So this is our classic blue-green. Marcus, this is just for you. But yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely want to make sure that we get more brush stuff in here. I actually do a lot of brush work. It's just generally we're kind of doing things kind of from scratch, different materials and things like that. I almost always do the base layers in airbrush. So got some blue-green on my palette. Going to my Broken Toad. This is the 0. Pretty pointy. It's not a super tiny brush, but it's long and thin, which is exactly what you want for edge highlighting. So I'm going to grab some water here, get it on the palette. I'm going to put more than I need. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to pull out a bit of the paint, combine it with some water, twist my brush, and let's see what we can do. Actually, let's keep going on this spider. I'm really enjoying this. I just love this model.
It is a really cool model. I wish it saw play.
Hey, you never know. All right, let's see. So again, I'm just going to go perpendicular to this. See, it looks good no matter what.
Look at that beautiful, clean edge to highlight.
I think I just impressed myself. So the edge highlighting, generally speaking, we just want to have something that's going to pop, but not look totally awkward, right? So the blue-green, obviously, by its name, has some green in it, but it's different enough and light enough that it'll actually pop on this model. There's like a hair that got airbrushed in there. That's what happens when you have cats and miniatures.
One or the other. I would pick the miniatures.
Oh, it's terrible. I have like a work desk, and I also have just my desk with my computer, and she just loves to like jump up over everything. And it's horrible. Especially when you don't notice it and you're just like, it's like caked in the model, like baked in.
Should GW add a new faction? I think that either they would add a faction to the lore entirely brand new, and a lot of people would be outraged. Or they would add a faction that already exists in the lore but doesn't exist on the tabletop game, and people would probably still be outraged.
Right.
I think it's unlikely they'll be making new factions, like whole cloth. Crude Codex, yeah, exactly.
I want a Crude Codex.
I think everybody says they want a Crude Codex, but if they saw what a Crude Codex actually looked like, they wouldn't want it.
I do. I love them. I used to love them more when I was a kid. But like the Nihilakh, so cool.
Crude and Squats are the two like forgotten children of GW that they really wish they didn't have. They're the mistake children.
They look so cool. They have like spined mohawks.
Yep.
I like them. You're just a hater. I can play Tau. That'll be my first Tau army. It'll be Kroot. But no, you're doing it wrong. Stop. Mark my word.
Squats riding Kroot.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, gosh, I want this curve, but it kind of just disappears into the model, which is beautiful, of course, but like terrible to paint. Like, when do you stop?
When do you stop edge highlighting? Ooh, when you die, I think is when you stop.
Right?
You just keep going. Forever.
I like legit have this debate every time I start a model, like edge highlighting. especially if they have a lot and I have to do a whole army of them. I'm just like, there's a point I'll cut it off for sure. With my Marines, I definitely did. With my fists, I would do like an edge highlight, and I eventually ended up with just doing like literal light highlights, meaning it was just a bit of white, kind of the shine on some of the edges, and then that was it. And that was, it sort of suggested the edge highlight without having to do every single line. I got games to play, man. Can't spend all that time edge highlighting. So just a heads up for you guys, we have just a few minutes left on the stream, so if you do have any burning questions, go ahead and throw them in chat. We'll answer them.
So long as they don't have to do with crude.
Especially if they have crude. In fact, I will only accept questions that talk about crude and masks.
So people are asking no wet palette. Have we developed the technology? Could we, one of these weeks?
No, this is Marcus because he made me use a brush, and now he's trying to make me use a wet palette too. There's an extent to your powers. No, we should actually do it. Well, Berger, you had a good idea. We should try one out on stream. Like we know the theory. We've talked about it. I've never used one. You've used one.
Let's do it.
So maybe at some point we should just like try one on stream for the first time.
Let's do it. I have everything we need except the Tupperware.
You bring the rest. I'll bring the Tupperware.
Nice.
It's a party.
I'd be ready to never use that Tupperware for anything else.
Ah, shoot.
Because mold.
Mold. It's a thing.
You're giving up this Tupperware forever.
That's okay. I have one I've sacrificed already to stripping my models in.
Good candidate.
Like, I know a theory that like washes out, but I'm not gonna take that chance.
Levi, no. Drones cannot jump in the way of psychic powers. Drones do not interact with psychic. They don't interact with anything that's not a weapon profile or a weapon or an attack. So,
or an attack.
If you have a stratagem that just creates mortal wounds in an area, for example, the Necron plain death laser stratagem, sure it has a cooler name than that. That just deals mortal wounds. It's not an attack. So drones don't interact with it in any way. They don't stop them.
Yep. It's the only way to get around drones.
What is the easiest way for you to get into the basic rules of 40k? So there's some starter kits. There's like 100 of them now from all the different generations of 40k.
Yeah.
There's going to be a new starter kit, I imagine, pretty soon for 9th edition.
I imagine. And
that would be an excellent way to get into the base rules because it gives you two pretty like simple, straightforward armies that are self-sufficient. They work on their own. And little games you can play that progressively add more of the rules. And I think that helps a lot of people get used to it. So you start with like, well, just a scenario where you just shoot that guy. You don't even move. The key's moving past you and you're just shooting him and trying to stop him from getting across the board. And then you start to have the charge and fight phase, and then you add psychic, right? So you sort of add things one at a time and learn all the rules progressively.
That's cool. I really like that. Yeah, that's a great way to just learn the basic rules. And that's something I'll try with people is like let's not have any psychic for the first few games. Just cut it down to the essentials.
Daniel, that is a tough one. So Daniel has 4 unpainted armies and has decided that he's too much of a perfectionist to actually paint any of them because painting one model takes too long. What should Daniel do?
That's tough. That's really tough.
While you think about that, I'm going to answer Kyle's follow-up question.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is sometimes there are stratagems or mortal wounds associated with an attack. For example, a sniper rifle usually can deal mortal wounds, or the Hellfire round stratagem turns the attack into mortal wounds. Because it's an attack, the drone can negate all of it. So one drone just eats the whole attack, unfortunately.
Unless they fail to wound.
Unless they fail to wound, which is a weird edge case that just really only lawyers and robots could have found.
Yeah. Actually, that doesn't work for snipers. You're right, because that's a wound roll. It works for the shock attack gun, though, because it generates the mortals on the to-hit roll. And so what happens with that one is if you hit with the 6 or with the special rule, it does mortals. which then means you need to hope that you fail to wound it, because then the drone cannot pass it off, and it just does D3 mortal wounds.
It's
dumb.
Such a dumb edge case.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, Daniel. I mean, I would. This is a tough question. First, I think look for what inspires you in 9th edition, and then like try to keep in mind that you're always coming back to models, right? So one of the things I try to do with my armies is I'll try to get everything up to a level where it's playable, right? Especially because I've traveled events with things like that with people. I also am a perfectionist, but I've been able to find a way where I can get things to an acceptable level, and I can feel okay about that, knowing that I'm not done. I'm never actually done. I'm always coming back to the armies. I think that's an important thing, honestly.
Assembly lining, I think, is a good idea, Bendaru. This is going back to Daniel's question of
Sure.
like, if doing one model, if you're too perfectionist, assembly line, instead of doing one model at a time, do 10.
Yeah.
So you paint all the leather on all 10 of your models, and then you paint the pants on all 10 of your models, and then you paint the guns on all 10 of your models. And then in the time that it would have taken you to do the one model, you secretly, quietly did 10.
Yeah, you've done 10 at 50%, but they will look good. Contrast paint is great. Yeah, that's true. Psychic is essential, Levi, absolutely. But just for new players learning, there's the game at the core level is very simple, actually. It's everything else that makes it crazy complicated and really enjoyable. But yeah, when they're getting started.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about 40K is that the rules are actually as decentralized as almost is possible. That like every codex introduces brand new rules. Every expansion, everything.
Well, that was the big impetus like behind the design of 8th edition, and obviously it'll be continued in 9th edition. Is there were no keywords, which now we have Blast, but there was no universal special rules. We say Feel No Pain because it's a carryover for just if you have a 5-up save after your armor save, then that was called Feel No Pain, and now it's Disgustingly Resilient or whatever. And so it's mega decentralized. Where in theory you could just pick up one, read it, and learn it, which actually is why it's also kind of good to keep relatively simple armies to start. There's a million rules on each unit, so if you can keep that complexity down,
everyone should just play Custodes. It's the most simple.
Anything that Bridger plays is usually like a pretty good starting. He's like, I'm gonna beat your face, and all of my army is like the same unit. Cool, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. Yeah, simple color schemes are important. Thank you so much for hanging out. It's been a lot of fun talking about the new stuff. We are so excited about 9th edition. We're excited about the Newcrons. I'm thinking next week we're probably going to be diving into some of the Mechanicus or Knight stuff as that book comes out next Saturday. It's pre-ordered this Saturday, I think. So really excited to talk about that. And stay safe out there. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. Also, if you did enjoy the video, go ahead and give it a like. And we'll see you guys